everyone ready?
This is everything that we saw online. Those are blank, so you can fill in whoever's.
The Board of Education meeting is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Secretary Ristich, can you please take roll call?
All members are present.
All right. And the approval of the agenda. Unless there are objections, the agenda will be approved as printed. Are we good? We will now take public comment. Would anyone like to address the board that's here this evening? All right. I have no yellow cards. All right, well then we are going to move on. We will now move on to our superintendent interviews and invite our first candidate, Mr. Adam Martin. Before Mr. Martin comes in, I'd like to please note that members of the audience who wish to provide feedback, you may complete an interview feedback form following each interview. After completion, they will be distributed to all of our board members. All right, and now we will proceed to our interview with Mr. Adam Martin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How is everybody? Enjoying the warmth and the sunshine? Yes. Nice to meet you. Messing up a perfectly good night. Here I assume?
Yes, if you could take a seat there. You're welcome. Welcome to our district. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We've had the opportunity to review your resume. So if you could please, I'll let you get settled in a little bit.
Thank you.
Jane, the mic keeps cutting in and out. I don't
You're
know.
turning your head away from the mic. Put the mic farther the way you go.
Yeah, no, it does have a gate on it. I don't
Okay.
control that.
I didn't know if it would matter if they could still hear us in the public. All right, now are you all settled? Now that we've had the opportunity to review your resume, please tell us what specifically interests you in the Waterford Superintendency and how your background and experiences make you a good fit to be our next superintendent.
Yeah. So I've been blessed to work in public education for 22 years in 4 really unique, different communities. And I owe a debt of gratitude for them because in those experiences, they've built in the belief and the foundations that have resulted in me sitting in front of you today. Before I talk about my background and what excites me about Waterford, I do want to share a foundational story that I think is important. At 14 years old, my parents sent me in the summer on a mission trip to Peru. That experience was pretty transformational for me, and I didn't know it at the time, but what I saw there in terms of the inequity and the poverty with children left me questioning how is this possible and what is the solution. 31 years later, I'm able to connect a seed that was planted and then has been germinated over my experiences working with students. And it's really fostered a passion and a vision to do our best to be able to lift students up and really transform generations through public education. I wouldn't necessarily say that public education is a mission per se, but we do have the ability to change kids' lives, and I feel really diligently about that. In terms of my background, I first was a teacher in Detroit and Garden City. I'm going to talk a little bit about the takeaways from those experiences. The 3 big pieces from there was, number 1, relationships are God. If you don't know how to build relationships, especially with students, they see right through it. So you have to be able to build solid relationships. That was a strength of mine that was able to see me through in those 7 years of teaching. The other piece was really designing engaging lessons and having assessments at the end so that way you could support student learning. Was something that I learned through the teaching process. And lastly, but certainly not least, leaning on your colleagues and collaborating with them openly so that way you can learn from them. The best educators are quietly the best thieves. They take other people's things and make it their own, and I was blessed with some incredible teachers that I was able to lean on. As an assistant principal, I took some of those learnings and had to apply them in a different way. The most is positioning myself in building relationships with teachers. I looked at that role as how do I become a servant leader, and how do I best support teaching and learning by supporting teachers and supporting students with the hope of fostering an increase in teaching and learning there. The other takeaways were, number one, I had to learn a little bit outside of the classroom. I had a principal that I was answering to. It's important to be able to understand what is the governing body above you and what are their thoughts on things, so that way you're making decisions as they would make decisions. My job was to make him look better. And then lastly, what was awe-inspiring for me was, once I got out of the classroom, the impact that a leader can have on the totality of the building, and frankly, as a superintendent, the impact that that person can have on your nearly 7,000 students and all of your staff members. It's an incredible responsibility. As building principal, I was blessed with 2 principalships, a middle school and a high school. And what I learned in those roles is you have to communicate, and do so consistently and with transparency. You have to constantly find and be willing to implement new approaches and really leverage your innovators and your early adopters in terms of the new things that you want to do. And then finally, be a courageous leader, resulting in be a courageous leader. You at times have to take positions, and I apologize, I didn't start my timer. So I'm assuming I've already been talking for 4 minutes. So in my current role as executive director in Dearborn, I oversee 8,000 students and in the Fords and Feeder. That constitutes 1 high school, 3 middle schools, 7 elementary schools, 3 early college programs. Previously, up until this last year, I oversaw our Career Tech Ed Center, along with our STEM middle school, which is a talented and gifted middle school, and our alternative high school. I directly support all things high school related. I also oversee our director of curriculum, our professional development planning, and our Title II budgeting processes. In these roles, I have grown my ability to build relationships, communicate transparently, foster growth and innovation, and really cast vision for our work. From a parent and student perspective, my responsibility is to ensure that we're creating high expectations and supportive environments for all of our students. The belief that I have is the culture that I try to create is one that is students first, while empowering students, teachers, and staff. In researching Waterford, I must say, you guys have an incredible community and incredible schools. Every time I saw something, whether it was watching a board meeting or looking at something on the website, what you were doing really affirmed things that I believe in and work that I believe we should be doing in public education. I want to commend you for the commitment, the $4 million commitment to your curriculum, the commitment to technology. The one-to-one in every classroom is huge, especially with new resources, having those electronic modes. Promethean boards is fantastic. The 2022 bond, the work that you've done to update your facilities, the Early Childhood Center, I know you guys opened it this last fall, are all incredible things that best position whoever it is to take this role to be able to move things forward. The principles of putting students first, developing strong relationships, advocating to best position all students and teachers in collaborative, transparent environments are things that I believe your superintendent should champion, and if selected, those are things that I would do. I want to pause here and talk about the most important role that I have, which is as a husband and a father, and talk about the impact that public education has had on them, and then how that has cemented my belief and my philosophy toward the work that we do. My oldest son graduated in 2023. He has an IEP. He has a seizure disorder. He doesn't have seizures. He takes medication for it. But because of that, he had some processing and learning issues. He needed champion educators along his way to be able to get him through. My second born, Asa, he's a senior this year, in the process of dragging his feet, choosing what college to go to. School was always easy for him. He needed an advanced track to engage him, and he's taken a lot of AP courses and done really well for himself.
My daughter Grayson is independent and has an independence and a creativity that I envy. She's a 10th grader, but next year she'll be taking career tech ed courses. She likes to do well in school, but taking the highest level courses isn't something that she aspires to do. And then my son Gideon, he's a 6th grader. He loves social studies and math. I cannot convince him to read, but he loves sports. I get to coach him in basketball, and he loves the social aspect in school. My wife, the rock of our family, is a one-to-one paraprofessional at a middle school, and she gives of herself selflessly to students and staff that need her. I say all of those things because at my house represents what I believe is a pretty good diversity of what all of our schools represent. I've had this philosophy since I was teaching and since I had my oldest son. Like, my job is to pay it forward. I want to approach every student as if it was my own child, hoping that somebody someplace is going to do the same thing for my children. And I would say that's something that I try to live out every day in my interactions with parents and my interactions with students, and that would be something that I would hope to foster from my leadership team on down into the building. One thing that I was encouraged about is the work that you guys are doing in terms of restorative practices and Leader in Me. I think those things are incredible, and we look forward to working with the district to continue that work.
All right, well, thank you. All board members will now ask questions in a round robin format. So I'm now going to pass the mic over to Trustee McGregor for the next question.
Please share an example of a time you have led a sustained multi-year improvement initiative, such as a strategic plan. Be specific regarding the situation, the task at hand, and your specific role and the outcome.
So as executive director in 2022, it was the time to rebrand or refresh our strategic plan. And at the same time, I had recently become an executive director. So going through the strategic planning process, I was an active participant and member. We identified 4 strategies. One of those strategies, which was instructional improvement, was one of the strategies that I was most directly involved in and I'll talk about. Prior to 2022, our district was a professional learning community district, which means our teachers met in collaborative teams, focusing on learning and focusing on results. We supported this through professional development, and administrators really set the stage for what that was. As we started talking with a group of individuals, so we brought administrators, teachers, instructional coaches, and coordinators into the conversation about what does instructional improvement look like. We began to glean some common themes and started looking at research in terms of what do we really want our strategic plan to accomplish? Do we want it to accomplish an outcome, or do we want it to stand for a process? And where we landed, based off of our professional learning community work, was we had 2 overarching strategies that were developed. The multi-tiered system of success for academics, how do you support student learning? And the multi-tiered system of support for the affective range, so how do you support students' social emotional well-being? In terms of the academic side, bringing this group of people together was eye-opening in terms of, while we had been doing it a long time in isolation, we had a lot of different thoughts and opinions about what things meant. So it was able to allow us to clarify some things. Underneath the MTSS academic side, we were able to create sub-strategies. The first group was kind of the norming. What are the conditions you have to have in order for teams to work well together? And then we built sub-strategies for each of the tiers. What does good core instruction look like? What does tier 2 or support instruction look like if a kid doesn't get it? And then what is tier 3, or what does it look like if a student is having a real difficult time? And within those strategies, we were able to build out proficiency criteria, so that way buildings had clarity around what the work was. What this ended up doing was it ended up becoming our MyKIP plan, school improvement plan, and our MyKIP strategies are really about the process of how do we as teams become data rich to focus on learning and focus on results in a collaborative way. Some outgrowths of that, because I know the question was, you know, what have you done and sustained over time? As we were talking, we identified some needs clearly. Number one was across the district, we didn't have essential or power standards that were common from building to building. So overseeing professional development in Title II. Title II is used for professional development. We spent a year in 2023 with consultants bringing teachers in and making sure that all 7th grade math teachers, for example, were in the room to have a conversation about what are the essential things that a 7th grade math student has to be proficient on in order to go to 8th grade. So we developed that in 2023. Halfway through that process, the teachers were asking us, okay, so we have these proficiency standards. What about assessments? And through the standards, we also worked on pacing and success criteria for each one. So the following year, we consulted again with the Michigan Assessment Consortium, the MAC, and they came in and helped our teachers learn how to build common assessments so that way we could use them. In 2023, in the summer, I volunteered to be on our union contracts were all up, so I volunteered to be on the negotiating committee for that. One of the things that we were able to do was create a 90-minute early release every Tuesday, because that was another thing that was unearthed in our conversation. So that way teachers, administrators would have time to do the work that we put in our school improvement plan. So trying to be really thoughtful about, hey, if we're going to ask people to do something, we have to create the conditions from the district level so that way they can actually do the work. And I will tell you where we're at now is looking at what does Tier 1 instruction look like? What does good lesson design look like? I am encouraged when I look at your strategic plan and you guys have out of your 5 tenets, 1 for academics and 1 for culture. Those resonate with me in terms of the MTSS academic and the effective. And I think it's really timely that your strategic plan expires in 2026. It gives whoever is selected an opportunity to cast their vision on it and work toward what it is that you guys are pursuing in the years to come.
As our superintendent, how would you work to ensure and enhance the sustainability and reputation of our district?
So let me start first with, as Waterford superintendent, I think a great priority is emulating and portraying and overseeing what the reputation of the district is. That's done through communication, being transparent, being credible, and being communicative as much as possible. In terms of sustainability, my inference on that question is sustainability of programs and implementation over time. So being really thoughtful, as I spoke about in the last question, about different programs and different things that you're being on. What is the sustainability of it? When I think of reputation, I think of 2 things. Reputations are based off of things you hear or interactions that you have. So first and foremost, I would charge my leadership team, my administrators, and my building to really be customer service oriented. I'm going to use that word with air quotes here. It doesn't mean the customer always gets what they want. It means we have high levels of empathy. We validate people's feelings, and we try to be solution oriented whenever is possible. And I would say, from my experience, every interaction that a stakeholder has with the building is an opportunity to either confirm a bad reputation or a good reputation, or go the other way around. So really being solid in terms of, hey, what does our voice sound like when we answer the phone call? How timely are we when we return emails? What does drop off and pickup look like? Is it chaotic or is it organized? Who's out there waving? What are things looking like at Friday night football games, right? So all of these little interactions, in my experience, my philosophy are opportunities to perpetuate a positive reputation about Waterford schools. The other side is communication. You guys have a tremendous communication director, I think that's her title, who does a fantastic job. As superintendent, I would try to partner with her to continue to enhance that. In the district I'm in, my superintendent has done a pretty incredible job over the last 9 years. If you guys search for Adam Martin in Dearborn schools, you're going to see me in pictures with him on social media and elsewhere. It's a great way to interact with our community, and those would be things that I would be looking to do. I firmly believe if you are not communicating and perpetuating the reputation you want, you're creating opportunities for other people to perpetuate it for you, and that's a missed opportunity. In terms of sustainability, I'll go back to what I said. In my role as director overseeing curriculum and overseeing professional development, oftentimes there are these shiny toys where people are like, hey, this is pretty cool, right? Before we start making an investment in professional development or a resource or whatever it would be, I try to charge them with, okay, what is the sustainability of this in terms of the resource to afford it long-term and the professional development that we will need to sustain this. I have worked diligently to make sure that we're budgeting our curriculum appropriately, spacing out our purchases, and really thinking through a sustainability lens in terms of the things that you're doing. It's really unfortunate that we have a funding issue in public education, but it is the reality. The job of the superintendent is to ensure that the things that are coming into the district are sustainable and that we're being really thoughtful with the things that we're bringing in.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin.
You're welcome.
So next question, could you please tell us about a challenge you've experienced in bringing a diverse group of people to consensus on a difficult issue? How did you provide leadership and what was the outcome?
So last February, my colleague and I oversee high school, she oversees middle school. We had been looking at our secondary data for a couple years, and we came to the realization that we have to provide, I'll use tier 2, a time to support our students who are struggling. We have a large EL population. We have a large population who are below proficiency at grade level. So what we did was set out to build collaboratively a systemic way to support students. We brought around 60 people in, secondary administrators, coaches, coordinators, teachers, and really started with, hey, what does support look like at the secondary level? We brought in research, made sure that we were looking at those things and comparing it with what research says, and then charged that group with creating a systemic, I'll call it acceleration, program at the middle and high school. So where we sit today is all of our middle schoolers every week during their advisory get 2 language arts lessons and 2 math lessons that are really teaching prerequisite skills that the students are going to need to be successful in the courses that they're taking. At the high school, we didn't have advisory. We created a math concepts and a literacy concepts class that did the exact same thing. It was being taught by the teacher that actually taught the class. The goal there was, how do we help them be successful in the class, and how do we also close some of those prerequisite gaps for the students. We did program evaluation at the semester break, and going into next year, middle school will continue with the model. High school is going to grow it. We have seen success, and high school is also looking at a flex model that will allow students to be able to touch base and get support if they're not able to get it there or if they need another opportunity. As Waterford superintendent, I look forward to leveraging this innovation, using the bell schedule, the resources that we have, to try to best make sure that we are providing student support within the instructional day. Oftentimes there's tutoring before school and after school, but not every kid can get there. So when we say all means all, how are we building that in to support students? You're welcome.
All right. How do you maintain visibility and accessibility for staff, parents, and community groups?
So in my role as executive director, I'm in my buildings pretty frequently. I try to schedule them in so that way I'm there once every few weeks. Parents frequently contact me. When I'm in the buildings, I'm talking to staff. Sometimes I'm meeting with students, support staff as well. What I've learned is if you don't intentionally schedule events to have visibility and accessibility, you get lost in the busyness of what the job is. In our district, we have, I run chatting events, which are like town halls. Those happen in our buildings. They're an opportunity for teachers to meet with us. They're an opportunity for parents to meet with us. I also have 3 advisory councils at my middle schools, which is a group of 10 to 12 kids. So I'm able to interface with them. Probably the best part of my year is working with those groups of students. They're able to share about how things are going in the middle school, as well as we work towards sometimes some type of school project. In terms of visibility, what has been modeled for me and what has been shared for me through a learning leadership model in Dearborn is being involved in as many community organizations as possible. We attend some of our, like we have Access and LAHC, which are nonprofits that give back to our community. HYPE is another one. We are constantly in support of our police, our fire, the mayor, and really anytime there's a community event, my superintendent goes, and oftentimes we go along with him. And I've been present in a lot of that. We also have district monthly PTA meetings that I attend. I've presented at those as well. So really being visible as much as possible in the community at those community events, and the superintendent should be the one that's leading that partnership. It only really works though, the accessibility, I want to say, only really works if you're responsive to the people, right? So it can be great to say, hey, I'm getting all kinds of information, but if you're not responsive and you aren't thinking through the lens of empathy, then accessibility is useless. I pride myself on trying to lead with empathy, trying to respond with empathy, and find solutions, but at the same time, how are we reflecting on our practice so that way we can improve? Every failure is feedback, and every feedback is an opportunity to improve.
Thank you.
Share an experience that illustrates your commitment and capacity to providing an inclusive and responsive environment for all students and staff, while also ensuring a transparent decision-making process.
So in my role as executive director, I work hand in hand with our executive director of special populations. He oversees our EL population, our special ed population in 504. We also have an EL director, and I work very closely with her. Our English language learner numbers in Dearborn are around 50% of our total population. Our at-risk or Title I numbers are around 70%. And we have a growing special ed. I'm assuming it's national, that Waterford's probably seeing this too, especially early education with autism and ASD. So one of the roles that I have in overseeing the Forts and Feeder is working with my 10 principals. Routinely, I'm working with them as a thought partner in terms of how do we take the resources that they are given and use them to maximize an inclusive support for all of our students. Sometimes that means reimagining how you're going to use resources. Sometimes that means learning from other people. But regularly, we are in those processes of how do we best support students with the limited resources that we have. I've encouraged our elementary buildings. As I said, we have a growing ASD population in elementary. I've encouraged our elementaries to house ASD classrooms within their buildings. It only adds to the rich culture that is the elementary building. For students who live in the neighborhood schools, they have friends and they might be on the playground. It's most inclusive for them to be at the building that is in their neighborhood. Our EL department used our essential standard work to be able to build or take those standards and build grade level coursework and learning opportunities for our newcomers who are new to this country and don't speak English. And that's been the first time that's happened. And I would say as a building principal, I had numerous times where students or staff were coming to me asking about, hey, can we do this? Can we be responsive to the community? Can we be more inclusive? And every time the answer was, is this what's best for kids? If it is, let's figure out a way to do it. Also on the other side, for accelerated students, we've updated our entrance criteria for our STEM middle school. We've added AP courses. Being over the high school, I have the privilege of working within the MDE flexibility to provide a lot of accelerated opportunities for kids who are trying to find a pathway that is independent to them. I would say one strength that I have is my willingness to press into innovation. One thing I've learned as an executive director and certainly as a superintendent, you have to go slow to go fast. In the building, you can make a decision and it ripples just in that building. At the executive director and the superintendent level, innovation can come, but it needs to be really thoughtful as you move your way through it.
Thank you.
Yep.
How do you decide when it's appropriate to involve others, such as teachers, other administrators, students, parents, or the board in your decision-making process?
It's really difficult to answer that because there's so many different decisions. I would say as superintendent, my job is to communicate with you guys as much as possible or create mechanisms so that way you guys are getting communicated with. In terms of decision-making process, I really believe it depends on what the decision is. I have found success using the 5 levels of decision-making in my own practice as a building principal and then now as an executive director. Level 5 is the superintendent. I'll use that because that's the role I'm interviewing for. Superintendent is just, hey, they're making the decision. I would say situations like that would be school closing, right? Or there's a safety issue or something where, hey, we don't have time to have a conversation, right? The responsibility is on me as leader of the district to try to make a decision in real time that needs to be made for the best for student welfare. And I have a real reverence for those decisions. Level 4 would be where the superintendent is making the decision with getting input from the people that are going to be doing the work. I would say, in my experience, level 4 has been, as an executive director, where I've spent a lot of my time. We're working with high school principals right now, visioning out what high school looks like, and we're going through kind of that level 4 decision making. We have a vast group that is giving input on it, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be the one signing off on it, and again, I'm okay with that. And they're okay with that too, right? Being real clear on the decision making, who is the decision making and what are those roles, helps people actually in terms of clarity of responsibility so they can fit into that role. Level 3 is we're all making this decision together. Level 2 is I'm going to give some input and the stakeholders will make it. And then level 1 is I really don't care, you make it. So I would say, depending on the situation, you may scaffold through all of those depending on the different people that you're working with. I would say what I have seen is optimal leaders are operating at level 3 and level 4 as much as possible. Again, I'm going to go back to being really thoughtful about the decisions that you're making. You cannot do that unless you have people in the room helping you problem solve, troubleshoot, give their input so that way you can come to the best case scenario for that decision. As superintendent, I would really be looking to collaboratively work with the leadership team and students and parents as much as possible to get their input on the litany of things that we need to accomplish as a school district. You're welcome.
Just real quick, what was level 2 again? I missed that.
Level 2 is I'm going to give you some input, but you get to make the decision. Yep.
Considering your past accomplishments, what are some of the reasons for your success? How have you overcome the difficulties you may have encountered?
So the hardest question, talking about yourself a little bit, right? I will go back to relationship building has been key for me. I mentioned it earlier, my first teaching job in Detroit. What I knew about science and what I knew about social studies didn't matter. The kids had to know that I was going to bleed for them, and I was vested in them, and that moved me forward. And frankly, that principle has been fundamental in my success and frankly, my ability to be here. As an administrator, those relationships changed a little bit, right? In addition to students, you had to build those with teachers, going to them, talking with them, building an understanding of when there are issues, having empathy and trying to find context so that way you can best support them and find solutions or build systems. And then now as an executive director, I have relationships with everybody, students and teachers and building administrators and the board and community and parents. And I would say being able to build relationships and have empathy are kind of those two undercurrents that you're going to hear in a lot of my conversations that have really helped provide success for me. Another strength is I try to be really thoughtful about creating systems for sustainability and looking at systems, being systems oriented. It's not just, hey, can we do this? It's what is the system to ensure that we can do this? And then being really thoughtful about the feedback loop so that way we can create other systems to be able to support when that initial thing doesn't work. I already talked about being empathetic and solution oriented for sure. The one difficult situation that I wanted to talk about was when I got the job as executive director, I was overseeing 7 elementary principals. You can see in my resume, I haven't been an elementary administrator. So I was a little bit fish out of water. The way I worked around this is kind of the way I work into everything is let me press into it. I have 3 slogans at the end of my email. First one is learn, second one is serve, third one is lead. And in that order is kind of how I operate. How can I learn as much as I can so that way I can serve you and then use my role to lead and move us forward. I pressed into my building administrators. I pressed into getting into classrooms, attending professional development. I pressed into my colleagues who I worked with at the executive level to help me really with what is elementary education. It's much different. A kindergartner is much different than a senior in high school who I'm used to. They bring a smile to my eye. I love them. They hug me. They ask me how tall I am. And they think, wow, this guy's got a beard, 2 different colored eyes. What's wrong with him? And the 5th graders will always ask me to play soccer and do other things. It's an incredible world, but it's much different. And it took me making a conscious effort to learn about that world in order to best support my building administrators. But going back to my original thing about when I was a teacher, leaning on the experts that I had, I did the same exact thing, right? Who are the expert administrators in our district? How do I lean on them? How do I learn from them? And how do I move us forward? So, yeah. You're welcome.
What does an effective relationship between the board and superintendent look like, and how do you cultivate such a relationship?
So I would say the main responsibility of the superintendent is to foster that relationship of collaboration and cohesiveness. As executive director, my superintendent has, as I've used the word before, had a shared learning leadership approach. He has included us in really all of the district decisions, from staffing to budget to responses at board meetings. Anything you can think of, that leadership team hasn't been involved in those conversations. Our superintendent it's a level 4. He's the one that makes the decision, but he has really opened up our experiences to be able to see what the interaction looks like with the board. My experience with my board has been fantastic. On regular occasions, they're reaching out to me, asking questions, asking me to contact parents. Recently, at our last board meeting, I had a conversation with 2 trustees. We hold our commencement exercises on our sites. One of our sites has a smaller capacity than some others. They're thinking about doing things a little bit different with commencement, which could find its way to a board. So I had a conversation with them because we talked in the last fall about what might this look like. I would say those interactions with myself and the board are pretty commonplace. I regularly attend board meetings. I've presented at board meetings, sometimes when I was supposed to, and sometimes when, hey, there was an issue and we need you to come up there. And I'm willingly able to do it. I feel pretty comfortable in front of the board and building the relationship. At this level with the superintendent and you guys, really it's going to come down to how do we build relationships with each other, and you can't do that unless you're spending time with each other and communicating. Over communication is, I've learned, is actually better than the other side. So in our district, we do, as the leadership team and our superintendent, weekly board briefs to give you guys, hey, here's some updates on some things that are happening, some updates on some things that are coming, and maybe some celebrations or invitations to some things that you may not know. Another mechanism we have for communication with you is when you have a malfunctioning fire alarm over at Kettering, incident report, so that way you automatically get reported on that. Sometimes I'm not going to be available to call each and every one of you, so what is the other communication tool so that way you guys are in the know? I envision spending time talking to you guys, getting to know you on a personal level, and really look forward to that. My goal would be to build a cohesive and collaborative culture that allows myself and you to develop relationship, and also my leadership team to have access to you as well. I want to grow them too, and give them the ability to have some of those conversations. In reviewing some of your board meetings, it looks like there's already a pretty collaborative rapport with some of the leadership teams, so that was good to see.
Please tell us about your experience with school finance and how you develop budgets that gain broad support.
Can I say, hold on to your chair and survive? So I want to preface this and just commend you guys for the work that you've done in your financial situation. Having a healthy fund balance is something to be applauded. I think with the uncertainty at the federal level and the state level and at the economic level, unfortunately, I'm predicting that fund balance across the state is something that we may have to tap into with the unknown of what it is. So at the executive leadership level in Dearborn, in around February is when the governor first starts talking about, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Our director of finance, executive director of finance, brings to us a worst case, a best case, and a most likely case scenario based off of what he's hearing. You guys know this. Our budgets need to be approved in June. The governor sometimes doesn't have a signed budget until well after that, but we have to have our budget walking into next year. So we work off of the most likely case. That leadership team is our human resources director, our business, the 3 instructional executive directors, our special pops, our superintendent, and our communications director. My favorite, this is going to sound bad, but my favorite conversations are with that group because what we're trying to do typically is how do we identify the things that we absolutely have to have, right? How do we identify the things that we really would like to have, and then what are some things that, hey, we can live without? But the focus is how do we best support teaching and learning, and how can we find solutions? While all of us supports a specific entity within the district, we do a pretty good job collaboratively coming to, okay, this is best case scenario, and there is sometimes a shared sacrifice depending on the different department. So that's my experience. I know that one thing that we do in terms of transparency is at our April board meeting, our director of finance started with those initial budget conversations with the board. We also have a policy or finance committee that meets regularly. I'd be a part of that. He would be a part of that. I'm assuming you guys have a finance committee as well. And then kind of from March up through June, as you're building that budget out, informing you guys of, hey, this is what it's looking like. So that way by June, you're able to adopt a budget for the following school year. But I really look forward to working with that leadership team. I know you guys hired a director of finance here recently from Genesee ISD, I think, and look forward to working with her too as well, right, and finding solutions so that way we can ensure the sustainability of the programs and things that we're doing here, with ensuring that teaching and learning is our primary focus.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ms. Martin, how do you recruit, develop, and lead a management team? If you could please give us an example of how you've done this in the past.
Yeah. So as superintendent, my role would be to have a highly functioning leadership team, management team, one that's interdependent, communicative, and truly sold out for doing what's best for students. In terms of leadership development, I have learned that being really clear, clarifying roles, providing expectations for what the work is, having measurables for what that work looks like, and then feedback opportunities is really imperative to any development of anything. So first and foremost, being really clear about who are you, what is your job, what are you going to accomplish, what does the feedback look like, and how do we improve? Number one, starting there. I took over a team that 4 of us were brand new to the building. So in our first year, we spent a ton of time storming and norming. And by storming and norming, I mean talking about everything. Talking about, hey, what do we do about this? What do we do about that? And it wasn't because I was trying to micromanage people. I was trying to get us, number one, on the same page with how we make decisions, but number two, operating as one. At the same time, organically, and I didn't know this at the time, we were developing personal relationships with each other. And those personal relationships with each other helped us to be able to better understand when one of them had an issue or something like that. It was embedded in some of their personality types and some of the responses. We actually did some personality profiling, which helped us in terms of how we work with each other. So how I would apply those things to the leadership team here in Waterford would be bringing some of those things along. They're probably not going to want to hear this, but I would be meeting with them pretty frequently and pretty regularly early on to kind of talk about, like, what are your roles, what are your responsibilities, what are the measurables, what does feedback look like for you, what does communication look like for you, and then collectively, let's all get in a room and have a conversation about how we should respond in this situation to make sure we're all on the same page. And then a gradual release in terms of, hey, I'm in charge of human resources, I can handle this, right, and some of those pieces. But really early on, the leadership development is trying to get on the same page with your basic philosophy. In terms of recruitment, as you're able to work on and develop those leaders, you develop a portrait of what are the skills and the attributes that this person needs in order to fulfill that role. Coordinating with human resources to try to attract those people. And I would say another thing that we do pretty well in Dearborn, we have 20,000 students and thousands of staff members, is how do we grow from within, right? And finding people who are showing us the attributes and those skills and then putting them in situations or providing them situations so that way they're able to explore some of those things are things that I would do in terms of recruitment. I've heard some of you say it, even though it's not your vision statement, that the future is bright in Waterford. I would agree with that. I do believe Waterford is a place that can be a destination, and we can attract the most talented individuals from the communities that surround us. And I would say we probably have super talented individuals that are in buildings or in other places that we can bring up too. So those are some of the things that I would do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, next question. What unique skills or leverage could you bring to this position, and how will the Waterford School District be served by this?
So I feel pretty well equipped to serve as the Waterford superintendent based on my diverse experiences, the current role that I've had and the experiences I've had in the role. I've attended the Michigan Leadership Institute Superintendent's Academy. I've talked a little bit about my current comfort with board dynamics, and I've attended and presented at the Michigan Association of Superintendent Conferences. In terms of skills, I'll talk about some of the things that I'm currently responsible for. I supervise our district curriculum work, adoption, and professional development. I support 10 principals in my feeder and all of the high school principals with making sure that our practices are aligned. I oversee our early college programs, our dual enrollment, all of our college and career partners. I was part of the developing of the secondary acceleration model. I've collaboratively led multiple teams and various committees to do a variety of things. I've creatively used flexibility to increase acceleration opportunities for our students. The Michigan Department of Education gives a lot of flexibility. Districts, it requires somebody to be innovative to try to find that flexibility to best support students, and that's something that I've really enjoyed doing, kind of trying to find the wrinkle there. I developed the elementary special schedule so that way all of our elementary students were receiving the same 5 specials across a week, and I was also able to save resources and provide teachers a common planning time through doing that. I created and designed alternate pathways to diplomas for some of our students who are struggling to get to the full graduation requirements. And these are just a few of the things that are skills that I have. But I really want to say the most unique skill that I have had, and you can see it in my resume, I've been in 4 different districts, and I've had success in all of those places. I can say that humbly, but if you ask people, they will say, yeah, he was successful there. So I have comfort and success in learning new organizations pretty quickly. I've talked before about being relationship focused. I developed super strong relationships. And then before I spoke about kind of learning and serving and leading are the 3 things that I really rest on, and that's just kind of who I am as a person. So being able to assess and learn, and then being able to serve and lead are things that I would love to do for you guys as Waterford Superintendent.
Thank you.
Describe how you function, communicate effectively and respectfully to all staff and community within the context of varying beliefs, behaviors, and backgrounds.
Yeah, so as superintendent, I think it's incredibly imperative that communication is consistent, transparent, and always supporting students. I'm excited to learn about a new community, and I've done that before, which I spoke about. I'm going to speak about something pretty quickly here. In the fall of 2022, our board meetings became a public place for discourse between books. What books should be in our media centers and what books should not. I'm not going to take a position on which side was right or which side is wrong. I'm going to talk to you about what we did as a school district, which I led. I was in charge of our curriculum director who oversaw our media specialists and kind of that whole process. So when we had the 1,300 individuals that came into our board meeting and we had to shut down the board meeting and schedule it for 2 days later, that was Adam Martin that was front and center for some of that. We heard both sides and we validated both sides' concerns. And what we developed was a process to allow our media specialists to number one, be purchasing books with set parameters in terms of what books we're bringing in, but also giving parameters for as they're auditing their catalogs. Sorry, I forgot the word there. On the other side, for parents, we gave them the ability to opt out of their kids being able to check out books if they would like. So they could opt out of select titles, they could opt out of all titles. If they had book titles that they had concerns with, they could bring those forward for a review. That could eventually lead to an 11-person group that would read the book and make a determination on whether or not this book was or wasn't right. So how we function and communicate effectively, given the varying contexts of beliefs, behaviors, and backgrounds, is really making sure that as public educators, we're standing for what's best for all kids, and trying to objectively position ourselves to be able to respond and validate to the different beliefs that are there. We are a reflection of our community, but we also need to make sure that we are supporting all students as well. We validated both sides. I would tell you, I don't know that either side was super happy with the outcome, but what we walked away with was a better system and better process than what we had before.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tell us about a time when you created a work environment in which people wanted to do their best. How did you create that climate and what was the result?
So as superintendent, I think it's incredibly important responsibility to make sure that the climate and culture is one where people maybe aren't always going to be happy, but enjoy coming to work and feel fulfilled in their work. As the principal of Stevenson Middle School, my first staff meeting was to tell them that we were a focus school. So a focus school wasn't a good thing. This was about 15 years ago. The state identified focus schools as, hey, this is a bad thing. You have too big of a gap between your high achievers and low achievers. In the 4 years that I was there, what I did was empower the staff to really build upon the strengths that we had and develop solutions for some of the weaknesses that we had. In 4 years, we moved vertically. They had a point system there. We moved vertically 31 points on the top to bottom ranking. we were removed from a focus group. We became a Leader in Me school at a middle school, and actually our first visit, I think, was Beaumont Elementary, which is a Leader in Me school, if I remember that correctly. And that was like in 2012. We were awarded the I Am a Leader grant. In 4 years, we transformed how that place looked and felt. And we did that by empowering teachers to be able to drive the bus a little bit. I allowed innovators to innovate. We developed accelerated classes on the high end for kids that needed to be pushed. We created support classes for kids who needed that double or triple dip. Students during advisory were creating clubs and doing these amazing things. When I left there, I had numerous staff members tell me how much of a privilege it was and how much they enjoyed working for me and working there. I think that's a testament to the positive work environment that I've created. I've replicated that again at Dearborn High School, and I think as an executive director, if you spoke with the groups that I work with directly, they would have similar statements about the work that I have. I try to be collaborative, try to empower people, and then try to use my leadership in making decisions to best position them for teaching and learning.
All right, thank you. We have time for about one more question.
Okay.
We don't have a whole lot of time in that question.
How much time do I have?
Speed round.
How much do I have?
You have about 3 minutes.
3? Okay. I can get through it.
All right.
Okay.
Describe your experience as an educational advocate at the local, state, or national level.
So my superintendent has brought us along to many of these. He has regular meetings with our state representatives, our mayor, our local police chief. I would say the first relationship I would be building is at the local level with our mayor and the police chief. Those are vital as a lot of what we do impacts our city. I've had other experiences that I want to highlight. I worked with Senator Polhanke on the Return to School Budget Subcommittee. We are the ones that recommended the 90-10 split during COVID for pupil accounting. I've worked with Senator Camilleri on regarding the FAFSA and budget FAFSA completion for seniors. In Dearborn on the Youth Mayor Service Corps. That's an initiative to get high school kids serving our residents that need support in the community.
All right.
Can I get to the last one?
That was a great, I'm not sure, do we have about another minute? Okay, we can get, if we want to pass it quickly, we can pass it over to Trustee McGregor.
Tell us how you have used your knowledge of student learning and educational research to guide curriculum development and increase student achievement.
So as a building leader at Dearborn High, when I was there, we looked at our achievement data and we weren't happy with it. We brought a team of teachers together to really look at what are the best practice instructional strategies that we know are going to help move students forward, our EL students and our non-proficient students. Where we landed was metacognition, academic vocabulary, and then regular opportunities for students to write and speak. This transformed how classrooms looked and gave us some clarity around what are the things we should be looking for in the classroom and allowed students to be more engaged with what was going on. Currently, amongst the high school principals, we are looking at redesigning what lesson design looks like at the high school. We want to pick up engagement and are, again, brainstorming different ideas that are based on best practice, looking at research, and then hopefully being able to outline some expectations so that way going forward, we can ensure to provide professional development for teachers, but also evaluate the effectiveness of those things. In terms of curriculum development, I oversee that, and I have charged our curriculum department as we're trying to purchase resources to be really clear about what the vision is for what science looks like at the middle school level before you go selecting a resource, as it is imperative that you're starting with the end in mind. What is it we're trying to accomplish? I do want to say, because I know I'm pretty close to time here, I don't believe that Waterford needs someone to come in and flip the apple cart. You guys have an incredible foundation here. I think you need someone to come in that's able to provide a fresh look on things and be able to enhance and build what Waterford already has. I've never tried in my life to be something other than the best version of myself, and either that's in the classroom or in the building that I'm in or in the school district that I work for. I would love the opportunity to work for Waterford as your superintendent. and help ensure that for the students and the parents and for the staff and for you guys, that I'm best positioning Waterford to be the best version of itself. I apologize that I went a little bit over. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we get a chance to interface and have some discourse again. So thank you guys so much.
All right, please have the mic. Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Martin. We do appreciate your interest in our superintendent position. The board is interviewing a number of candidates, and we will contact you if you are selected as a finalist. Thank you for coming. We definitely enjoyed meeting you.
Thank you.
And please, those in the audience,
Thank
if
you.
you could fill out and
It's
complete
good
those
meeting you.
feedback
Thank you
forms,
so
that
much.
would be great.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. It was great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. Nice meeting you.